All right, and this Hangout on Air is live. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Shalev, and we are here on the Rebel Labs interview with a virtual jug speaker. Today, we had an amazing, very inspiring session with Markus Eisele. Markus, hello.
Hi, Oleg.
How are you doing? How was your session? This is not the first time you were on virtual jug. Was it better than before?
Actually, I'm getting better at it. I told you before, I think it's very challenging for a speaker to not have any feedback at all, to just speak like to your own slides without being able to like grasp a look at the audience. And I'm actually also not monitoring like Twitter or the IIC channel. That's all stuff that you guys do. So yeah, I think I'm kind of getting there. It was the third session, right?
Yeah, I think it was your third session, and previously you did amazingly. You was on the Juggernaut list for 2015, one of the top 5 sessions that we had.
Still getting goosebumps. I'm very, very proud and happy to be part of that great team.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. If you don't know and you are just watching this interview on the YouTube, or you just read the recap of the session, Markus Eisele, he's a Java champion and he's a former Java expert group member, the Java community leader for the German umbrella project for all the jugs. He's a founder of the JavaLand conference, which currently has the call for papers open. So if you want to visit that, and let me tell you, last year it was amazing. So you should look into that. So he's a developer advocate for Lightband, and recently he's been looking into containers, microservices, architectures, and how to do that stuff properly. So he's an author of several books ranging from Java EE to software architecture to microservices. So yeah, he has a lot of experience here, and just he's an amazing person to talk to. If you want to talk to Markus, you can find him on Twitter. He goes by @myfear. Just go and ping him and say how much you enjoyed the session and ask any questions.
Grill me, I'm all there.
Yeah, that's great. So typically, this virtual interview with virtual jug speaker would start with shorter Billy's question about, do you like puppies or kittens more? But since you're an experienced virtual jug veteran, and we've had that before, so let's jump straight to the longer questions about your session and about the architecture in Java EE. So your talk today was titled 9 Nines Where Java EE Will Not Take You. And during the session, you provided us with a list of things that Java EE lacks when you consider building microservices fleet and a system of microservices on that platform. But just before, like, even recently, you were a strong Java EE advocate, and you were that since forever. And now even this title has a little bit of kind of negativity. Maybe it's just a clickbaity title. But what changed in your perspective that changed your opinion about Java EE kind of fairly strongly in a fairly short period of time?
Good, very, very good question. So yeah, I'm still a big fan of Java EE, don't get me wrong. I think it was built for solving a problem that I had to tackle on for at least 14 years in my past as a consultant and technical architect. And it is a very solid platform if you have to build like a departmental application. If you're using something like NetBeans, you can easily kickstart a very simple, still strong and usable app with all the Java EE specifications. Another bit the first bit that made me move and made me open my horizon a little bit about new approaches is probably the fact that Java EE kind of staled. Whenever you look through my blog about the postings over the last couple of years, when it came to asking for new features or innovating in terms of the specification or just specifying existing best practices, I've always been a little bit on the side of trying to at least innovate, at least a little bit, like making it interesting enough. And the innovation might have happened in earlier years in a very, very concise way. So meaning that only the big industry leaders actually came up with the new ideas, and they all sit together at a table and kind of made that new Java EE version happen. And that worked. But our technology portfolio in general, like for us developers, has outgrown a single technology that is suitable to handle enterprise-grade workloads. And I have to admit, looking at some of the alternatives, and you name them, like Node.js, Vertex, Akka Play, even Lagom lately, those are all very, very solid, and they have one thing in common. They are a lot faster than Java EE is in terms of developer productivity, in terms of resource usage. If you just think about like the recent case study that was published on the Lightband blog about PayPal, I was pretty amazed to see that PayPal actually is running 1 billion transactions a day on 8 virtual machines with 2 virtual cores each. Just imagining what it takes to actually scale Java EE to handle 1 billion transactions a day. And I thought about actually publishing, or at least showing, a couple of the JSpec enterprise benchmarks that IBM and Oracle still publish for their application servers. And you can see like the big gap between what those modern architecture approaches can deliver in terms of performance on minimal hardware, very, very cost effective. And if you compare that with Java EE and the, let's say, developer convenience of using APIs that barely change over the turn of 10 years, that kind of wants me to test out something new. And that was the other part of the motivation to actually jump ship at that point. And I have to admit, it's funny because many of our actual customers experience kind of the same situation. So they end up paying license fees in various amounts to vendors that innovate very slowly. Like even new WebLogic or JBoss EAP versions come out like what, once every 2 years. And what do they actually contain? Like maybe an admin UI brush over. This is probably not like the kind of thing that we're actually looking for. And especially Lightband has a great track in building reactive applications that scale. Like Akka is a perfect framework, and it's well suited for so many business requirements. And just predicting the future a little bit, like we're almost in the middle of it. The insurance showcase I talked about, we need a lot more computing power. We have a lot more data, and unless it's a departmental application that runs under some people's desks somewhere, I think we're outgrown Java EE from many, many different perspectives.
Yeah, and well, you mentioned, well, actually 9 things that Java EE, like, and those were general things that are not in the Java EE standard. So the nines of Java EE. And that brings me to the second question. So you mentioned resilience, well, lack of resilience and lack of asynchronous support and back pressure in streams, or service elasticity, or out architecture, and so forth. Which one, if you had to select one, which would be the most deal-breaking kind of thing? Like, if you had to pick the most important thing that is missing, what would be that for you?
I think I would like to have an asynchronous core that embraces at least the principles of event sourcing, message-driven communication. It's hard to pick because it's actually not one thing that makes an application server up to date or fit or great at all. But I think the 4 tenets that the Reactive Manifesto actually defines could be a good guideline in which particular areas to improve Java EE to get a lot closer to those modern application architectures or even microservice-based architectures. But there's a lot to do. Like, it's a big construction site, and just picking one probably won't solve the puzzle.
Yeah, that's true. for me, I think the out architecture, the whole like support things, probably were the most impactful, because if you like that, you will have to build that yourself.
Yeah, but honestly, there are a couple of great things out there that actually at least deliver parts of that. Fabric 8, like one of my favorites, favorite open source projects out of the Red Hat ecosystem, they do a tremendous job delivering exactly these outer architecture and also reaching out into the developer lifecycle. We do have stuff like API management that is out there, open source, available, and I really don't think that this would be the biggest advantage. It kind of would lead people to the assumption that building like the core microservices on Java EE is even more feasible. And it's not. It's just not.
So if we talk about implementations and the actual technologies, so obviously if, say, we have a greenfield project, right? So we have a carte blanche situation where we can pick the technology and we have the capable team. And we have a couple of contenders. So Java EE stack with all the good libraries and all the good solutions around that, or the Spring stack. So, well, you know, the Spring Boot approach, or there is obviously Liband's Lagom stack. What would you say Lagom does better than anyone else? And this is not a trick question. I would like to hear your honest opinion, like where Lagom is like miles ahead of everyone, if you can say that, or why should one? Yeah, basically.
I actually would have to pick two. My personal favorite is the developer experience in Lagom. If you look at something like Spring Boot, for example, you at some point you will have to deploy your fat jars somewhere. So building one microservice is something that all of those technologies can do very easy, and they make it very easy to build that one. But a microservice-based architecture has at least two, mostly even more. And I mean, having to deploy two services somewhere and having them talk to each other is like the biggest challenge. And for me as a developer, this is a complete round trip, right? So I need to have the infrastructure. I need to have Kubernetes. I need to have like Spring Cloud, whatnot. And I really need to make that round trip, like build, package, deploy somewhere. And Lagom actually has a very neat approach of using SBT as a development environment. And instead of deploying the microservice decoupled in the cloud in production, we're actually running them inside one single VM for development purposes. And you can launch all of your project's microservices in one build with one command. So the developer experience is like tremendous, and I haven't seen that before. I think the most technical argument probably for decision makers is that Lagom is nothing new. It is something that is built on Akka and Play and Akka Cluster and Akka Persistence, technologies that are rock solid proven and actually are serving businesses as of today. So we're not trying to rebrand something that is not meant to serve a new purpose, like maybe a micro profile or something. We're actually trying to make the very complex technologies that are needed to build a real distributed, resilient application usable for the Java developer. So having that teensy little layer on top of Akka Play and whatnot is actually the biggest important part that tries to and definitely helps to enable all those Java EE well-known developers to use something easier, like a Java API that is built for microservices. And everything is just ready for production. So it takes you all the way. It's not just having to open a terminal and running a single fat jar. We actually exactly know how to put that into production at scale.
Yeah, so what you said, if I understood correctly, so Lagom solves a lot of very complex issues for you, and hides that like inherent complexity of not just designing and creating, but also maintaining and evolving that complex system of microservices, and kind of offers you a very smart choice of the underlying technologies.
It has a service API, for example, which is exactly meant to implement services. So instead of implementing an actor, or instead of implementing a servlet or something like that, which could be a microservice, we actually have a service API. So you implement that one. And also for the persistence, we're very opinionated, which means we don't have a lot of options at that point. Lagom embraces asynchronous communication and fast persistence as a first-class citizen. And CQRS is built into the core of Lagom. And you don't have to mingle around with those concepts and rebuild them or use a third-party product. It's all built into the persistence API. And if you still don't want to use this, you have a couple of options, which basically are opened up by using Play or Akka standard features. So it all plays pretty nicely and still gives you a very guided approach to developing microservice-based architectures.
Thank you. This was actually a great answer, and I think this was the best answer to what Lagom is that I've heard so far. So you just educated me, and hopefully educated other people as well.
Trying harder.
And probably the last question, because this took a little bit of time already. So microservices were all the hype like a year ago, right? And now, well, that's still all the hype in the hype.
We have a new one already. That's true.
That is true. So and we have the technology here, and for example, Lagom sounds like an amazing choice to try if you haven't yet. So what do you think are the problems that we do not know how to solve yet? And where would be the challenges in the for the community, in the upcoming year or two?
Like a visionary leader question? Where are we going? Like as a whole and individually?
No, I don't think I would. I'm asking about the visionary questions, but do you know any concrete examples of hard problems that are still really hard to solve as of right now?
Distributed systems.
Still hard.
Yes,
still
hard.
Even with Lagom, even with all the digital.
Absolutely. And this is probably something that will still stabilize and roll out into enterprises over the next couple of years. I really expect that to happen. The modernization approach is something that enterprises are forced to take for various reasons, fighting technical debt, implementing new features. We will see a lot of applications moving forward. And with most of them, at least in classical enterprises, being on Java EE, plus Java EE being stalled and not really developed any further, there literally is no other chance to jump ship in the best sense. And I doubt that it's all going to be back to Tomcat or any other open source Java EE approaches. So we'll have a lot of lessons to learn how to modernize our monolithic applications, and how to build really, really big distributed applications in a very easy way.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough problem. Well, hopefully we'll see a very bright future. I'm all out of questions. Thank you, Markus, for spending this time with me and educating me. People, if you're watching this on YouTube, go check the actual recap of Markus's session about 9 nines where Java EE will not take you. The recap is available on rebellabs.org, and go watch the session in full. It was really insightful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Markus, once again, both for the session and your time on the interview. It's been great.
Thank you, Oleg. It was my pleasure, always coming back whenever you want me, and I'm still trying to propose some new ideas from time to time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.